The gun violence rate in the United States is 26 times higher than every other high-income country. So we are comparatively a much more dangerous place to live. And though violent crime is going down in New York City, according to law enforcement's own data, however, we could be doing so much more to ensure that New Yorkers are protected and all Americans are protected.
Welcome back to Inside City Hall. That was Rebecca Fischer, the executive director of New Yorkers Against Gun Violence, testifying before the House Judiciary Committee at its field hearing in Manhattan this week. Congressman Jim Jordan was at the helm of the hearing, which was supposed to shed a light on crime in New York and on Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg's policies. But as recent NYPD data indicates, shootings and murders have been dropping in the city. Rebecca Fischer joins me now to talk about that and more. Welcome back to the program. Great to see you.
Great to see you, too. Thanks for having me.
Did you have to do a little bit of thinking before you agreed to go to what some characterized as a political circus yesterday?
Of course I did. You know, it was definitely not exactly my ideal way to spend a Monday morning. But from my perspective, as the leader of New Yorkers Against Gun Violence, and frankly, as a parent living in New York City, you know, we need to stand up for our city and we need to get the facts out there. And that's what I did yesterday.
Yeah, it's interesting because I don't know if those who believe this counter narrative, this narrative that New York is a hellhole and it's dangerous and so forth, I'm not sure any facts would necessarily convince them otherwise, but what were the main facts that you were trying to convey to them yesterday?
Well, first of all, I wanted to make it clear that despite the propaganda that they were pushing, that crime has gone down in the city of New York and in the state of New York, and that really the spike was due largely to the impact of the COVID-19 pandemic. And we still have a lot of work to do. And a huge piece of what we need to do is to enact strong federal gun legislation. And that's what they're not doing. That's what the GOP in Congress has been blocking.
Yeah, tell me about the interplay between local laws and what's happening at the federal level. We had this really groundbreaking, path-breaking Bruin decision last year that struck down at least the original version of our concealed carry laws here in New York. Where do things stand now?
Well, look, we have some of the strongest gun laws at the state and local level in the country and some of the lowest gun death and injury rates. We have a universal background check system here. We have an assault weapons ban. But the reality is that because there are such weak gun laws in other states and we have such weak federal laws, we have a national gun trafficking crisis. And so over 70% of the guns that are used in crimes in the city and in the state are from out of state. And, you know, the extremists in the Conservative Party and the Republican Party, including those that have been appointed to the U.S. Supreme Court, are doing everything they can to make this the Second Amendment battleground. And so that was why the Bruin decision overhauled our strong public carry law. And we had to go right back up to Albany and push lawmakers, which they stood strong on, to enact, you know, a new law to ensure that there are fewer guns in public. Still within the scope of the new decision, which, you know, is a dangerous and confusing decision. But we're doing everything we can to ensure New Yorkers are safe.
Why do you think your adversaries are interested in changing the laws in New York? There are lots and lots of places where they've had a lot of success, sold a lot of guns, have loosened restrictions, you know, session after session in various state legislatures. Why do they care about what's happening in Albany?
That's a good question. And frankly, you know, having Jim Jordan and Matt Gaetz in our city sitting, you know, in the middle of, you know, 26 Federal Plaza raised a lot of eyebrows there as to why, you know, leaders of states with some of the weakest gun laws in the country are coming here. But they've chosen New York because we have stood strong up to, you know, the extremists in the party. And we have some of the strongest gun laws here. And so, of course, they're going to go after us. They continue to push this propaganda that more guns will make us safer, despite all of the public health data. And they're really pushing, you know, a message of fear to ensure that more money goes into the gun industry's pockets. And that's really ultimately their agenda. and including this sense of fear that they're trying to push in terms of their very racist agenda as well. And so all of that intermixes here in New York City.
To the extent that we've seen a lot of activity recently, all eyes were on Tennessee just a few weeks ago, and that really came in the wake of some national demonstrations by a lot of young people. Tell us a little bit about sort of the state of the movement. I'm detecting sort of a surge of activity, but I don't know if that's planned, if that's real, if that's sustainable. What do you think?
Well, look, the movement has been pushing strongly ahead really for the last decade. And even though it has been so challenging to get strong measures passed in Congress, states one by one, as we've been able to flip state legislatures, have been enacting stronger gun laws. But the reality is that until we can really get stronger gun laws passed in Congress, we're going to have a problem. We did get some new measures passed, some of the strongest new laws that we've been able to get passed in Congress since the 90s last year. But there's so much more that we can do, and we need to continue to galvanize the public to push ahead.
I wonder if you're detecting anything like a generational shift here. The average age of members of Congress, the House of Representatives, is 58. It's a lot older in the U.S. Senate. And I noticed that a lot of the people who were marching were much younger, and they've gone through a generation of active shooter drills and other forms of discomfort and trauma that I suspect might mean that we're going to be encountering a very different level of engagement on this question. It can't happen soon enough, but is that where things are trending?
Absolutely. Our young people have a very strong voice, and they have been the most impacted. Gun violence is the leading cause of death for children now in the United States, and they know it, and they feel the threat every single day, whether it's in their schools or in their streets, in their parks, or when they go to a concert. They don't feel safe, and they legitimately have a fear, and they're getting to be at voting age, and they are a legitimate threat to the extremists who really are continuing to kind of push this agenda that is not in the best interest of our young people, of our families. And I look forward to seeing what happens at the polls.
Okay, we're going to leave it there for now. Thanks very much, Rebecca. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
All right.